Well, Brian, as the heart and mind behind theos, it is just a true delight and an honor to have you as part of this series, The Future is Calling Us to Greatness.
Michael, I'm thrilled to be here. Excited to chat.
So I just confession, when we talked, whatever it was, a year and a half ago on the phone, I fell in love with you as a soul brother. And so and then to have worked with your people, in fact, I gave John and Travis both the feedback that there's in fact, somebody else too, maybe it was Casey, I forget, but there's an impeccability. I've come to so appreciate the way you all do things is really of top quality, top value, without a lot of the sort of breathless enthusiasm or breathless hype that I sometimes experience in some of the new age stuff. And so at any rate, it's just a treat. So I'm glad that you can be part of this as well.
Well, I have goosebumps, and I appreciate that's the highest praise you can give. I'm really excited for the team to experience that, and it's a reflection of what we aspire to. It's just a really deep sense of groundedness and the ancient wisdom and modern science and common sense and virtue and mastery and cool and just being integrated. So, and living with as much impeccability as we can. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Well, one of the things that I may not need to do with you, but I've done this with everybody, and so I'm going to invite you to do it as well, which is, if there's anybody in this series, actually there probably will be, because a lot of people that will come to this may not be familiar with other theos programs. And so for people who aren't already familiar with your work, they've never heard of Philosopher's Notes, they don't know anything about theos or the other things that you've been involved in, help us get Brian Johnson. Like, who are you? What are you known for? What are you proudest of in terms of what you've accomplished? What are you particularly passionate or committed to?
Well, I have to say on the top of my list of things I'm most proud of is the praise that you just shared. And, I'm the philosopher and CEO. My wife and I started in Theos together. And we started it because we were just passionate about connecting to the highest within ourselves. So in Theos, God within equals enthusiasm, radiant enthusiasm. When we can connect to that thing, that essence that's bigger than us, whatever we call it, we tend to feel better. We tend to be able to just shine with that enthusiasm. So our highest goal personally is to do that. Our business's purpose is explicitly to help people optimize their lives so we can change the world together. Not as a narcissistic, check me out in my six-pack kind of thing, but nothing wrong with six-packs, but not as an end in itself. But how do we make a difference? How do we become a better human being and make a positive difference in our communities? And our business is all about that. We have this educational platform with events like this. We also have a social platform, which is my background entrepreneurially. And that's what I'm most excited about. I've spent half of the last 15 years building businesses and half of the 15 years in philosopher mode, reading and writing and thinking and teaching. And that integration and really creating a great business that can make a difference in the world and demonstrate how powerful of a force for good business can be from scratch. And then be transparent about it. This is how we're doing it, and hopefully do some good work in the world that makes a difference. And honored to be able to partner with extraordinary teachers like you and amplify your wisdom and make a difference. So that's the somewhat meandering overview of how I see myself in this moment.
Cool. And say a little bit about Philosopher's Notes and just help us get a sense of how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so Philosopher's Notes was about 7 years ago on the journey. So the super quick biographical sketch, first generation college student, son of a blue collar grocery worker, went to UCLA, studied psychology, wound up getting a minor in business, thought I'd get my PhD, but they were only doing really the negative aspects of psychology at that point. Positive psychology wasn't around. This is the early 90s, mid 90s. Went into Arthur Andersen, did consulting work, audit, tax, financial planning, consulting. Knew that wasn't it. Went to law school up at Berkeley, and I knew before I went I didn't want to do that. Dropped out before a semester was even over. And the only inkling of bliss that I had, to frame it in a way I couldn't then, was to coach a Little League baseball team, to work with kids. And I did that. And out of that, I came up with an idea for my first business, which was called E-Teams. And the idea was every team in the league, this is 1998, will be using the web for everything. Let's serve them and give them really cool websites and all these different things. We did that, won a business plan competition, and then raised $5 million, .com, boom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sold that. I spent several years became a philosopher, a lover of wisdom, read and wrote and traveled a bit, created a second business, which was basically a MySpace for people who wanted to change the world. And we did some fun stuff with that. Wound up selling it to a company called Gaiam. And that brings us to Philosopher's Notes. So that's the context of the Philosopher's Notes came after I sold my last business. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. It just wasn't that. And I decided to give myself a PhD in optimal living, in how to live. And I wanted to study ancient philosophy, divinity, but also business and nutrition and all the aspects, positive psychology, of course, that I think go into creating a great life in the 21st century. And the Philosopher's Notes were basically a master's project en route to that PhD. 2 years, I distilled, wound up being 180 optimal living classics into mini Cliff's Notes, 6-page PDFs, 20-minute MP3s, Marcus Aurelius to Nietzsche to Emerson to the modern day teachers, and try to share how they all say the same thing and weave that together in a really practical, fun style that you can take into your life today. So that's what Philosopher's Notes was for me in that phase.
Yeah, well, and I want to. I mean, I'm not sure they are all saying the same thing. I think the diversity is really healthy and leads to greater wisdom. But certainly, they're all coming from from a similar set of values and commitments. And I just want to put it in a plug because I have found, Connie and I both, my wife and I both have found your Philosopher's Notes to be just gems of summation of some of the real classics, wisdom classics throughout history. And we've both got them on our iPods and still, I listen to them.
You're awesome.
Yeah, well, and so how did theos get birth? Help us understand this particular organization and what your sort of what have you experienced already, and where do you see this going?
Yeah, well, my wife and I created it when we got married 4 years ago, and we thought about a nonprofit, we thought about a for-profit. My background in the entrepreneurial side of things, and my deep passion for conscious capitalism. This idea of transcending and including, and how do we integrate our spirituality with our business and our livelihood. And so we decided to create theos we're now a public benefit corporation, which I'm incredibly excited about, where our corporate charter has explicitly baked in these ideals, our commitment to something bigger than ourselves, and our commitment to you and our other partners, and optimizing each of our stakeholders. Whereas the C Corp has the fiduciary responsibility to maximize shareholder value, period. That's what the board is legally obligated to do. The B Corp extends that to the broader societal view. So we're really excited about being part of that movement. And so creating theos with the explicit intention, as I mentioned before, of we want to help as many people as we can optimize their lives, whatever that means for them. As you said, diverse viewpoints. And our mission is to inspire and empower people to be the change they want to see, to use that phrase, whatever that looks like. And then how do we work with great teachers to help them amplify their wisdom? We found that if we want to change the world, you do that by helping people be the change. Well, how do you do that? You do that, we think, in part by helping people like you get your wisdom out. So how do we provide the technology and the kind of business infrastructure to help you get your wisdom out more, and do that on scale where we can reach millions of people and really effective positive change, and then connect those individuals to one another. So the reality is anyone listening to this or watching this in this event has more in common with the other attendees than almost anyone else in their life. But how do they meet them? That's not how Facebook was architected. Yeah. So to create that social platform for connection is another big part of what we're up to, and what drives us to do the work that you so graciously reflected that our team is inspired to do.
Well, I don't know anything about, frankly, the social side of this. So share some about that.
So that's my background. So I've built and sold 2 leading social platforms. And the idea is very straightforward. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Pinterest, there's Instagram, and all these others. But there needs to be a place that's all about this conversation. Mm-hmm. You go to those places and they're extraordinary technologically and what we can do and how we can connect. And then also very interesting energetically and often toxic. And so how do we create an oasis is what we call our community. How do we create an oasis where this is the conversation, period? Mm-hmm. And rather than getting ridiculed when you talk about getting up at 6 a.m. or sunrise or whatever to meditate on Sunday morning, rather than, wow, I'm hungover again and wow, it was a rough one on Saturday night, and get made fun of or one like for it. This is a community of people who are engaged in these practices and cultivating virtue and being engaged in this type of dialogue. So we have the basic social tools that you would expect. And then we're also developing a lot of tools to integrate this type of content in the theory and the practice, and then really drill in to build new habits. Mm-hmm. So meditation and exercise, and nutrition and gratitude and love and rest and all the things that we know, just common sense and scientifically, to improve our lives. Let's gamify that in a way, make it fun to create those habits in community, which is where almost all change occurs.
Right.
And that's the vision for the social platform and what we're so excited about.
That's cool, because so much of what my wife and I, what Connie and I have focused on for the last 6 or 7 years has been around what we call evolutionize your life. That is taking our best evidential understanding of our inner nature, our outer nature, our social nature, and our interpretive nature, and then saying, okay, how can we take this knowledge and really move it into wisdom so that it helps us live, much better lives of integrity, of compassion, of generosity, having the healthiest possible relationships, and then, as you say, working together to ensure a just, healthy, and sustainably life-giving future. So not just all the self-focused, but really saying, okay, coming into right relationship with my reality such that I can be a blessing to my outer reality, and ultimately we can be a blessing to the future. And I think that's some of the most holy work that's happening on the planet right now.
Mm-hmm. Impeccably said.
Well, it's interesting. My first, I did two TEDx talks, both in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's interesting. There's TEDx talks organized all over the world. The three most prominent that are most sort of world class are Tokyo, Paris, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, of all places. And 2 years ago, I did one on evolutionary psychology and brain science at the TEDx in Grand Rapids, and it was called "Why We Struggle and Suffer Now." And it was really, the reason that we're tempted, the reason that with the best of intentions we sometimes shoot ourselves in the foot, the reason that we sometimes struggle with addiction or distraction or whatever is not, of course, because our great-great-great-great-grandmother ate an apple. It's because we have mismatched instincts, that is, instincts that are as compelling as any animal's instincts, but they're mismatched for today's conditions. And that we live in a world of what's called supernormal allurements, that is, things that we'd normally be allured to, but now in concentrated dosages and presented in concentrated ways that they're damn near irresistible. And so we've got a nation that's addicted to TV, news, video games, shopping, internet porn, romance novels, and on and on and on and on. And if people are clueless about what's driving them and why, like what's going on under the hood, then they're going to continue to struggle. And so many people on the West in the conservative religion keep trying to turn it over to Jesus and study their Bible more and that sort of thing. And so many people on the East try to witness their troubling feelings and temptations to death, rather than really understanding and honoring what's going on from a deep evolutionary wisdom place, such that then our instincts can serve us to have healthier relationships, to have a better life, and to ultimately to die a peaceful death and to leave a sweet legacy. And so at any rate, I did this presentation in Grand Rapids, and I had 3 evangelicals. Of course, Grand Rapids is a pretty conservative part of the world. And I had 3 evangelicals come up to me within about a 2.5-hour period after my presentation. There was this big social event. And they came up to me independently. And all 3 of them said basically the same thing, which was, I was a young earth creationist until I heard your presentation. Now I've got to accept evolution. I've just got to do it in a God-honoring way. In fact, one young man, he was in his probably mid-20s, would be my guess. He said, I always thought that evolution was about Darwin, DNA, and dinosaurs. I didn't know it was about how to live a more Christ-like life or have healthier relationships. So it's that practical side of what's being revealed through science, through evidence. And anyway, I don't know where I went down that one, but my most recent TED Talk was on reality reconciles science and religion. That what we today call reality, the ancients called God, or if you lived in a polytheistic culture, the gods. And we don't merely believe this, we know this. The evidence is compelling. And so I find that what you're doing within Theos, and of course there's other organizations that are also trying to do transformative education. I'll be interviewing Stephen Dinan from the Shift Network, as well as Craig Hamilton and Claire Zammit with Evolving Wisdom. And of course, there's others as well that are not just about transforming the individual or helping the individual become more fully who they are, but also to do so in the context of how can we use our gifts and our limitations, frankly. I mean, the universe needs our flaws. The universe needs our shortcomings, but how can we work together given our unique gifts and challenges so that we don't have to perfect ourselves first before we are of service to the future and a blessing to the world. And again, I just honor the work that you're doing with so many amazing teachers in this process. Whew. Wow.
Hey, man. Bridget, brother.
Yeah, thanks. Well, this theme, the future is calling us to greatness. I've been sort of holding this mythic frame that the past is rooting for us, and the future is calling us to greatness. And Matthew Fox offered an interesting twist. He said, the past isn't just behind us. He said, the past is also in front of us. Our ancestors are also in front of us, drawing us forth, so that we can do for our time what many of them did in terms of sacrifice for our time. I thought it was a brilliant sort of twist. But anything that you would be led to say on this theme that the future is calling us to greatness?
Yeah, what comes to mind is my son. So he turned 2 this week, and just, the embodiment of the future and the opportunity to serve and to create a world that I and we are doing our part for him to take the mantle and kind of take it to the next step. So for me, that's been what comes to mind as you say that is just the sacred opportunity and obligation it's trite but true, that to leave the world a better place. And then the moral imperative for me, and I think those of us that are attuned to this whisper and that calling to do the work and to do the practices and to embody the ideals that we know to be true, not with perfection, but with a deeper and deeper level of commitment and embodiment and integration. And that's really at the heart of what we're most passionate about. And the Greeks described it as arete, and this idea of virtue or excellence, but really expressing the highest version of ourselves moment to moment to moment. And so the whole architecture of our business is really around that. So how can we set up the structures such that connection to the highest within ourselves is a more consistent reality? And then for us, it's not esoteric. It's very pragmatic. Did you get a good night of sleep? Or were you up on your computer watching TV until 10, 11, or 12 at night? Because guess what? Evolutionarily, that option wasn't available to you, period. And anything that didn't exist 100 years ago, we need to question whether it's wise to integrate deeply into our lives. And if we do so, then, now I'm inspired by your work on this. I mean, the hyper stimulation that exists. But my personal commitment is to structure my life around these very basic rituals that allow me to be more connected, more consistently, and then to create a culture in our business. We pay our team an hour a day everyone on our team meditates on us. So, 15 minutes a day is our commitment individually. Once a week, we can pull a 1-minute card. And then exercise and journaling and nutrition, taking care of ourselves, whatever it means for our team. That hour, the first hour of the day is on us. And then, again, just creating that culture and letting that ripple go out where it's cool to do these things. What's more cool than being virtuous and to live a noble life? And I think that's the opportunity in this moment that the future is inviting us to and calling us to. And then greatness defined as, I think in my past, I've certainly had that manic pull to extrinsic greatness. If I'm the guy on the cover of the magazine and all these extrinsic things of how famous am I and how powerful am I and how wealthy am I and how attractive am I. And we really want to pivot from that vantage point to the intrinsic, truly sustainable greatness of, am I becoming a little better person day in and day out? Are my relationships deeper? Am I a good husband and a good father and a good friend and a good son and leader in our business? And then can I make a difference in my community? Starting with that I open the door for the person at the movie theater. Not that I make it on the top 10 best-selling list or on Oprah, and in the process ignore all these little things. So reframing what greatness means is a big part of our effort. And then knowing that you do that one individual by one individual by one individual and family and community, and you do that on scale, we can change the world, period. I mean, that's what leads to this level of enthusiasm, what I'm so excited about with your work, and how I respond to the theme of what you're putting together.
Yeah. Amen. Well, I mean, it's that attention to local detail, the local people. One of the things that I feel that spirituality really should be all about is, as you say, not necessarily the esoteric. It's like, what is the quality of my relationship to my mother, to my father, to my siblings, to my children, to my ex-wife, to her husband? You know, what is the quality of my relationship to my neighbor over there, and my neighbor over there, and the people that I work with? You know, one of the tools that I gained years ago from, I think it was Jack Canfield, the first time that I encountered it. It was in his book, The Success Principles. Is this notion of just asking the people in my life on some frequency, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 meaning it couldn't be worse, 10 meaning it couldn't be better. How would you rate the quality of me as a father, as a husband, as a coworker, as a whatever? You know, how would you rate the quality of my preaching, whatever? And then if it's less than a 10, what would it take to make it a 10 for you? To get that kind of constructive feedback that's not about griping or complaining. It's about inviting people to step into giving you the most useful feedback possible. And it's not that I necessarily will always be able to act on it in such a way that it does produce a 10 for that person. But there's a certain, what I call the DNA of integrity, the DNA of right relationship to reality. For me, integrity is the practices and habits and mindset, the heart set and mindset that help me live in right relationship to reality. You know, my inner reality, outer reality, and so on. And so I've identified in my book, Thank God for Evolution, I identified what I consider the DNA, the 4 bases, the 4 core essential aspects of right relationship to reality. If you think you can be in right relationship to reality and ignore one of these 4, you're kidding yourself. And these 4 are found in every religious tradition, every spiritual tradition, the recovery program, and so on. And they're real simple. Humility rather than arrogance. Authenticity rather than deception, responsibility rather than the blame game, and then being of service to something larger than yourself. And those 4, humility, authenticity, responsibility, and service, I see as the essential. I mean, there's other things too, of course, but those 4 I see as at the heart of, there is no, you're not going to live in right relationship to reality and thrive and have others around you thrive if you're not growing, not perfect, but not growing in humility, authenticity, responsibility, and service. And of course, those are you know, even in the 12-step program, you know, it's like the first 3 steps are about humility, higher power, larger reality, whatever you want to call that. You know, the next 3 steps are all about authenticity, living integriously, authentic, telling the truth, stop keeping secrets, you know. The next steps are all about responsibility, make amends. I mean, we've all left awake simply by being alive and following our instincts. We've all left awake. So going to those people and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry," or I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just want you to know that I was a real shit back then. And if I could do it again differently, I would. You know, that kind of communication, which is so relationship healing. And then, of course, serving something larger than yourself, serving a larger vision, serving the future, being a blessing, And again, that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to partner with you all, is that I feel like that institutionally, organizationally, you have and are continuing to try to find ever more effective ways of embodying those and other character traits, other virtues. So, yeah, I hope. I remember when we first talked, whenever it was a year and a half ago, I remember feeling at that time that I looked forward to the day, and in fact, I think I probably shared this with you, when we would, you know, find a way of dancing together or cross-fertilizing or co-creating something, and it feels like this is just the beginning of that. I'm excited to be.
And just to echo too, it's been just to be in relationship with you and your commitment to these values, and you know, I love your explicit articulation of those. And for us, some of those are explicit, some are more tacit and expressed in different ways. But just to have that resonance and the joy that we feel in partnership with you and to be able to create together, and to, again, how do we create more of that in the world with the work that we do together, and with the ripples that come from that is just so deeply inspiring.
Yeah. Well, for people who don't know, I mean, people who may not be familiar with theos, or theos, however you pronounce it, I've heard it pronounced both ways.
Yep.
And enthusiasm, full of God, full of inspiration, you know, is the way I interpret it. But you've also got, part of it is these conversation series like this, these seminars, these sort of virtual symposiums, or symposia, I guess. But also there's the Academy. So say a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Academy, the idea for that came out of a conversation I had with a guy named Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The War of Art, fantastic book on creativity. And he also wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, a screenplay. Will Smith and Matt Damon, I think, are in that. And it's
wow.
the Bhagavad Gita on a golf course. Bagger Vance. It's amazing.
Okay.
He's very into classic Greek virtue, and we're having a conversation.
How do you spell that? Because I want to watch that.
Oh, it's so good. The Legend of Bagger, as in like a caddy, Bagger.
Okay.
Vance, Vance.
Okay.
So
Legend of Bagger.
Bagger.
Okay.
Great stuff. But he's really into classic Greek virtue, and we were having breakfast a few years ago, and just talking about where's classic Greek virtue in modern culture, and what can we do, just what's going on with that. And he asked me, knowing my background and just connecting, he said, have you ever considered creating a modern day Plato's Academy? And it was one of those kind of choir of angels moments of literally my whole body was like, whoa, that's a really good idea. What would that look like? A modern day Plato's Academy. And so we've been really tinkering and experimenting and testing. What would that look like? And testing different things over the last few years. And the basic idea is, well, clearly it would be virtual. You would have the opportunity to have not just Plato speaking, and then his symposiums, by the way, and you can go either way on that too. We've looked it up, right? Symposia and symposiums were really drinking parties. Symposium is to drink together, right? Same root as sympathy, on a given theme. So our symposiums are on a given theme, right? Kind of virtually. And then our academy classes are particular classes on a given subject in a really fun, compact style, 30 minutes, super practical. We currently have almost 300 professors on our faculty. We'll have 1,000 end of next year. We currently have 400. We're approaching 500 classes. We'll have 2,000 to 2,500 classes end of next year. And the idea is to create the greatest collection of optimal living wisdom ever. How do we do that? And then from a business perspective, make that unbelievably affordable.
Yeah.
So another Greek Latin word, astonishing, to strike with lightning, to astonish. So how do we create that much value where we give the best to the most for the least for $10 a month? And if you can't afford that, get a scholarship. It's non-issue. And the idea of bringing a ministry, we thought about, how do we create a 21st century church as part of our dialogue, where money never gets in the way. That's never the issue. And of course, any organization needs wealth flowing through it in order to succeed and to thrive and to expand.
Sure.
But how do we do that in the construct of a public benefit corporation that is profit driven, yet oriented around these stakeholders, and serve as profoundly as we can? So that's the idea of the academy and how it relates to the symposiums. And then the interesting thing with Plato's Academy is he did 2 sessions, as I understand it, an advanced one early and a more kind of public one later. But what really occurred at the academy was social interactivity. It was the dialogue among the participants where the real education occurred. So that's where our social platform comes in. It's really the extension of that, the virtual academy, and just a virtual meeting place to discuss these ideas, go into life, come back and see what we've learned together, and have that, professional, academic, professorial wisdom, and then also the aspiring peer-to-peer dynamic, which is, so robust in itself.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it because I just learned about it just maybe a week ago, because I was invited by Katrina on your team to basically create an academy and to formulate sort of 10, in fact, the game that I'm playing with myself in the formulation of this, we haven't even decided quite on the title. I'm sure it'll have something like, how to step into the future's call to your greatness or something like that. We don't know. But, what are the 10 big ideas? What are 10, and this is the game I'm playing with this because I've been working on this last 2 days, is if this were the last contribution that I had to the world, if I were to die as soon as this was done, and this is Michael Dowd's sort of like the essence of what I feel called, empowered, and gifted to communicate to the world, what would the 10 most important things that I would want to pass on, the memes that I'm carrying, that would be of most benefit to others into the future? And so that's the game I'm playing in terms of trying to articulate these 10. But I love the fact that it's forcing me to do it in a half hour, and to have 10, sort of actionable steps, or at least, 10 big ideas And the game I'm playing, of course, is if these are the last 10 things I communicate to the world, what would it be? And I just love this exercise of doing it. And then also to be able to then, as you say, have access, to make it just accessible to anybody. I think that's so vital because so much wisdom gets packaged in ways that some people just can't afford. Or they're for whatever, especially in economic challenging times. So again, this is another place that as the more I learn about what you're doing, what you and your team are doing, the more delighted I am by that, and the more honored I am to participate in it myself.
It's amazing. And again, the feeling is so mutual. We were actually talking about you on our team call this week and just that passion with which you're approaching the creative challenge. And it's nearly identical to how I've framed my work with my son again of, okay, well, if I was going to pass away, what would I need to share with him, and how do I distill this? We actually talked about yours. It's almost like your first class is that here's the introduction to the 10 big ideas, and then let's do a series of further mini classes on this particular idea and 10 ideas on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I again appreciate your reflection, and that's the idea. And then how do we inspire as many great teachers to teach with that same energy and passion and wisdom, and again, give the best to the most for the least. So we think the future of business is calling us, and the future of greatness in business is calling us. And really, we see an opportunity to revolutionize kind of the space of taking the best of a church orientation where no one is sitting at the front of a church giving you a ticket or taking in money before you come into the church. This is not how it works. It goes around and people chip in and everyone gets, that's just part of the dynamic. How do you take that with the business dynamic and bring it online and scale it? And then our vision is very straightforward. We want to create one of the coolest, most virtues-based, impactful, and profitable businesses on the planet and demonstrate that living with a high level of integrity and virtue is not only the right thing to do in and of itself as an end to itself, but it also just so happens to be the best thing to do. Yes. And how do we, and I get goosebumps as I say that, how do we prove that and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs? And I've been inspired by John Mackey and Patagonia and the Container Store and all these great businesses. How do we play our role in doing that such that the next generation looks at it and says, I don't need to compromise. I can be purpose-driven. I can integrate my deepest passion for service with my desire to create something of scale and to experience beauty and luxury and affluence in the world while being of extraordinary service and changing the world and using business as a construct to do that. So this is obviously what fires me up. And again, what our team is so committed to of being that change individually. And we say all the time, our business is just the context for them to optimize their lives so they can actualize their potential in greatest service to the world. I've said that dozens of times. And then again, model that as a possibility for the future of what business can look like. And we're just at the beginning phases, and we've got all the nuts and bolts and blocking and tackling to do to be a worthy messenger. But that's the intention. That's what we feel called to in that form.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, that is such an inspiring vision. I mean, it's in theos. I mean, it really is an inspiring vision because it's, but it's more than just a vision. I mean, this is the thing. So far, everything I've tasted, everything I've experienced, everything I've watched or listened to or read that's coming out of your organization feels like it's got that integrity. It's got that right relationship to reality. That's an allure of. I think there's something inherently alluring to that kind of impeccability, that kind of integrity. It's not about just doing the right thing. It's showing that the right thing can be done in a way that scales and in a way that reaches deeply as well as broadly. One of the other things that you mentioned that I find inspiring, two things actually. One is that I keep death. I keep my mortality. I mean, the fact that I am a mortal being, that I visit graveyards all the time. Connie and I visit graveyards, and we do it in part to remind ourselves that, it wasn't very long ago that a lot of women died in childbirth and a lot of children under the age of 5 died. So we're in a very privileged context in that sense because it's much rarer now in most parts of the world. But also, I'll stand in front of a gravestone and I'll look at the person's name and dates and all, and usually their wife or the children's or whatever, and I'll say to myself something like this: now, whatever it is that this guy right here, whatever he may have believed about his soul or his spirit or his consciousness or whatever might have survived, whatever his beliefs about whatever survives death. And of course, there's multitude of beliefs around that. Whatever him inspired, that's great. That's cool. I've got nothing but a deep bow of respect to that. But from the perspective of every life form in the universe, this guy's everlastingly dead. And I'm soon going to be just as everlastingly dead as him in that sense. And so that motivates me, that inspires me to prioritize my life in a way that I don't put off the important things. And I often will ask myself, okay, if this is the last message, the last whatever, what would it be? And Connie and I personify. I mean, for me, God is a personification of reality. My relationship to God is my relationship to reality. For me, Christ is a personification of the future. To serve the future is to serve Christ. Connie and I personify our relationship. There's Connie, there's Michael, and there's Jasmine. And Jasmine is the mythic whole, the mythic personification of us or we. Angel is our van. Nora is our personification of North America. We don't call this continent North America as an it. We call this continent Nora. We've got this intimate, personal relationship with this amazing continent. And so one of the things we do is personify the seasons. And toward the end of every season, we'll hold each other looking at a sunset or something, and one of us will say, thank you, summer, for being such an incredible blessing. If one or both of us dies before you come around again, we just cherish what an amazing gift you've been. And we're silent, and one or both of us will often tear up. It's like that personal relationship, that I-thou relationship, as Martin Buber used to speak about it, with reality, with nature, with time. And I find that that's the juiciest way to live. And so you reminded me of that, of what you were sharing. And also, I keep a picture of my 4-year-old granddaughter right by my computer, because she is, when people ask me what inspires me in the face of scary stuff, or when I ponder that, my granddaughter, it's that my granddaughter is the embodiment of the future calling me to greatness. So, well, any last things, Brian, that you want to say on this theme, or just anything at all? Oh, actually, before you do that, there's one question that Connie has asked me to ask all my guests in this series, and I've only forgotten a couple times. And that is that if you could invite any 3 people in human history to a dinner party where all 4 of you were together, with a universal translator, of course, so you can all understand each other, or if you were to have a one-on-one, a beer or a glass of wine or a meal or a cup of coffee, whatever, a glass of tea, with any 3 people in human history, who would those 3 people be, and why would you choose them?
What an awesome question, and an easy one for me to answer, because I actually reflect and kind of personify the archetypes of individuals who I'm inspired to embody, their most beautiful characteristics. So the 3 people for me, and I'd actually enjoy the group setting, but then I'd really prefer the one-on-one. That's where I have my fun. We go on a hike, or we do something where we can really, really connect, one of these kinds of chats. But the 3 people are Marcus Aurelius, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Steve Jobs. Wow. And for me, it's really what I feel called to integrate in my life. So Marcus Aurelius for me is the leader, the kind of emperor philosopher who is such a passionate student of Stoicism and of right living, and just a humble, noble, beautiful soul who inspires me deeply. So Aurelius, that's why. And then Emerson as the evangelist, who left the church yet extended the church, and was transcending and including and integrating the East and the West, and doing so in such a heroic way. And that drive of self-reliance, of that God is within us, and our biggest challenge is to trust ourselves. We named our son Emerson. Emerson's the second one. And then the third is Jobs.
And also Emerson had such a deeply ecological consciousness.
All of it, right? I mean, just that transcendental, true, transcend and include all of it in our connection to everything, in both a mystical and a very practical sense. Right. I mean, that all of it. Yeah. And then Jobs, and I like to qualify it with Jobs with heart, so that creative genius with a really big heart, and just a really deep sense of the multiple stakeholders, where it's not just creating fiercely and making a dent, but doing so in a manner that those who interact with you feel your deep connection to something bigger than yourself. And there's integrity throughout the ecosystem of the business, and society is served, partners are served, of course the investors are served, the customers are served, and the employees are served, and everyone is looked at as not a means to the end, but as just a beautiful opportunity to work together and to make a difference together. So those three are kind of my three archetypes that I really admire and strive to embody on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, given how highly I hold those three, I would like to be invited to that as well. I'll let you have your. I'll let you have. You can have your own one-on-one with them hiking or whatever. But I want to be part of the dinner party.
And I literally do. I mean, this is part of my
Yes,
contemplation is to
exactly.
really look at it and say, well, how would Aurelius address this particular challenge, and how would an
Exactly.
Emerson, how would a Jobs, and to
Yep.
really just again, as you so beautifully described, kind of bring that archetypal virtue into a real embodied sense in my own mythological way, and then how can I be that in this
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah, no, I do that with historical figures as well. I will embody. I'll actually imagine that I was them, but yet with the knowledge that we now have, how would I speak? Like Charles Finney, the great revivalist, is one of the inspirations for me in that regard. So, well, Brian, this has been fabulous. Any last things that you want to say on this theme, or just anything at all? Anything that you'd love to share in conclusion here?
Just thank you. I appreciate you and your energy and your embodiment of theos and the opportunity to have this conversation and to be creating together and making a difference together. And as you said, just the beginning. I look forward and deeply appreciate and respect and admire you and excited about all we're doing.
Yeah. Well, ditto back to you, brother. All right. Thanks. Blessings on you, and especially now that you've got a young son. I've had such a my three children are now 20 or 31. I've got a 31-year-old daughter, a 29-year-old son, and a 24-year-old daughter. And I've been really blessed and graced with an amazing relationship with all three of them. And now I'm beginning to experience, because my oldest daughter now has this 4-year-old, or she'll be 4 soon, granddaughter. So I'm beginning to experience that next generation as well. And I just there's no more holy spiritual path than parenting in my experience. No more challenging one in some ways,
Yep.
but also no more holy and rewarding. And so I don't envy where you are, because I'm glad I had that experience. But I honor the both you and your wife for this time in your lives and what it can be, because there's nothing like children to really motivate you to ensure a healthy future.
You be in integrity. Beautiful.
Amen. Amen. All right, brother.
All right, big
Blessings.
hugs.
Yeah, you
Yes.
too. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.